Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the 2024 League of Women Voters Candidates Forum. I'm Tiffany O'Connor, the Darien League of Women Voters Communications Chair. We're grateful to you all for being here, and we extend a special thank you to our candidates for participating in this very important event. Tonight's forum reflects the League's mission of empowering voters and our commitment to fairness and transparency. A bipartisan committee has worked diligently to develop the questions you'll hear, and those questions were shared in advance with our moderator. Our goal is to ensure that all candidates are treated with respect and given the opportunity to share their views with you. And before I introduce our first selectman, well, for those who don't know him, I'd like to mention that we do have a change in plan. Unfortunately, candidate Jason Bennett for the 125th district is ill and is not able to participate tonight. And because of the League's empty chair policy, that means that Tom O'Day will not be participating either. So, now, he's still here. Yes, we're glad he came. And now Darien's first selectman, John Zagrodzky, will share a few words about the League.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks a lot for coming. I just want to provide a voice of encouragement for the League of Women Voters, which is the reason for my comments this evening, and I'll be blunt on a couple of things. I'd just like everybody to hear this, though. So we'll note that the only debates tonight are between candidates for state office in the legislature. The municipal candidates are not here, and the reason that they're not here is that the Republican Party pulled out of the debates that are taking place tonight. It's worthwhile noting why that happened. So several years ago, there was a debate with the Board of Education candidates. One of those candidates had a hand symbol that he showed that was interpreted as a white power symbol. And images from the video from that debate that evening were captured and displayed as part of campaign efforts. And so what happened was, when that went out, the Republicans who were part of the League of Women Voters said, well, the League should actually condemn that because videos from the League's debate are not supposed to be used in any kind of campaign forum. But the leaders at that time decided not to take action, and all the Republicans resigned, and here we are today. The reason I'm saying this is that I'm reluctant to go through that history, and I don't say it in a way that ascribes blame to anyone, either the Republicans or the Democrats as part of all this, but I felt it important to explain why this was the case. I'm actually looking forward on this. Representative Mara and I have talked about this at some length. Both of us, as well as a number of other people in town government here in Darien, are extremely motivated by what the mission of the League of Women Voters is. And that mission is to provide a forum for everyone to exchange their views, for voters to hear from the candidates so that they can get a sense for what those candidates might represent if they're elected or re-elected, and to empower voters to make informed decisions. But we need an entity like the League of Women Voters to be that anchor, that sort of central point that candidates from both parties can grab onto and say, that's a fair-minded organization. I'm happy to participate in their debates. I want to go to their events because this is the kind of forum where we can exchange views and then let the voters decide. I think that's critically important, and I am personally committed to helping the League regain the trust of the Republican Party, but also to build on the trust that they have with Democrats. And so as such, over the next year, I will be trying to support the League as it reconstitutes itself, and what I recommend is that we try to have a nonpartisan approach with regard to the leadership of the League. It's one thing for people to have partisan points of view, and God bless, that's America, right? But if you're an extremely partisan person or you have a partisan footprint in town, the League of Women Voters is not the place for you. You should be going out and supporting your party. What we need are people who are committed to the fairness of this process. And so I'd like to work with the League over the coming year such that next year when we're here, everyone is participating in the debates because they view the league as that great central point that we can all come to and debate the issues. Earning that trust will take time. Changing these minds will take time. Even Senator Duff and I have talked about the importance of that in discussions that he and I might have. And I firmly believe that. So it's time to get back to what I would call regular order on things like that. I would hope that everyone here would join me in that effort over the course of the year to rebuild the trust so that the league can play the important role that it can in this society and in this town. I did want to single out Tiffany, who has worked tirelessly to try and help in this regard. She deserves a round of applause for her efforts. And finally, to thank everybody who supported the League of Women Voters. Ann is here this evening, and anyone else who tries to contribute to make that organization the key that we need here in town. I really do appreciate everything that you do. Thank you for indulging me, and I hope you enjoy tonight's debates.
Thank you. I would like to add that it is definitely a team effort, and there are a few people behind the scenes who have definitely worked more than I have, but I am the talker and the emailer. But thank you. We sure appreciate it. And next, moderating tonight's forum is Patricia Rossi, President of the League of Women Voters for the state of Connecticut. And thank you all again for being here, and we hope tonight's discussion will provide valuable insights to inform your decisions about this year's elections. Tisha.
Thank you all for coming. This is, I hope we all learn a lot. I bet we will. Our focus this evening is to provide you an opportunity to hear the views of candidates who would like to represent you in the Connecticut legislature. The first forum will be between the candidates for State Senate District 25. The second will feature candidates from the 141st State Legislative District. We're going to use cumulative timing this evening, and that format is designed to allow the candidates time to discuss the issues. The only rule is that the total time used by each candidate by the end of the session be approximately the same. The candidates will not be restricted to 1 or 2 minute responses. Instead, they can spend as little or as much time, within reason, that they need to discuss the issue. The candidates will take turns being the first to respond to each question. Before we begin the question period, they will each have 2 minutes to make an opening statement. So we're about to start. And it is my pleasure to introduce the candidates for the 25th State Senate District. To my far right is Martin Tagliaferro, and the Republican candidate. And right next to me here is Bob Duff, who is the Democratic candidate, and who will also appear on the Working Families Party line. So we drew names out of a box, and Martin Tagliaferro won, so he gets to go first, and please make your opening statement.
Thank you all. My name is Martin Tagliaferro. I started my career as a bridge design engineer and worked in New York City.
You can't hear. Oh, we can't hear you. One of these.
There you go. Thank you.
Oh, lovely.
Hey, that's better. Okay. My name is Martin Tagliaferro. I started my career as an engineer bridge designer for a company in New York City. I was there for a number of years and found myself later moving to the Port Authority in New York and New Jersey, where I moved from the design technical side of the industry to the construction management side of the industry. And since then, I've worked on close to $8 billion worth of construction projects. I've been a project manager, a program manager, a construction manager. It's all the same thing, it's just a different size project. I've worked on buildings, tunnels, roadways, bridges, railroads, railroad stations. Worked on $8 billion worth of construction. I learned so much while I was doing that, and in the process I've worked on contract negotiation, I've worked on dispute resolution, I've worked on everything you can possibly imagine on $8 billion worth of construction. And the best lesson I learned was Reasonable people can find a reasonable solution to any problem. The trick is finding reasonable people. I take a look at our world in politics right now, and to be blunt, I don't see a whole lot of reasonable people out there making decisions. In my world, an unresolved problem is a waste of time, money, and resources. In the political world, an unresolved problem is an opportunity to demonize your opponent and to fundraise. I'm here to give you a choice. I'd like to give you a choice on how we go forward to solve the problems that face us. I've done this for a number of years, where I've been working and negotiating difficult contracts to find mutually acceptable, reasonable solutions to any problem. And I offer that to you tonight as an opportunity for your choice as state senator. My name is Martin Tagliaferro. I would appreciate your support, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tagliaferro. From this point forward, let's not show our appreciation until the very end, because we only have a very limited amount of time. Thank you. Mr. Duff?
Thank you. Thank you, and good evening, everybody. Thanks to the League for putting this together. Really appreciate it. I first want to underscore what the First Selectman said. I think it's really important that we have these conversations and that we have these debates to talk about our vision for the community, for our state, and for the community at large in our region, and really what's at stake this election. First, I just want to take a moment to introduce some of my colleagues who are here. We had Senator Pat Billy Miller, who's here, who represents Darien as well. Senator CeCe Marr was here, and I see Representative Kadeem Roberts, who's here. I know we said hi to Representative O'Day. And it's really great that they're here, even though I know with Senator Miller and Senator Marr, their opponents did not want to debate, and so therefore Darien has 3 state senators. Only one of us, 2 of us here, are on the stage tonight, which doesn't, I don't think, helps the community making the decisions that they need to make in the election. And we know that this is a crucial election. I don't know about all of you, but I know that there's a lot of people who are out there a little stressed about what's happening in 2024 in the presidential election, but this election also has state ramifications. There's a lot of issues that we want to talk about and highlight the fact that Connecticut is really a great place to live, and that Connecticut is really doing a great job. We're firing on all cylinders right now. And the fact that I want to highlight the record of delivering results for my constituents, and the fact that we have reduced taxes by $600 million. We're protecting a woman's right to choose, and we are enacting strong gun safety legislation. And those things are important to the people of the community, just like delivering results for the town of Darien with school construction money and other funding that is important, and working with the First Selectman and the administration to help deliver results for this community in ways in which, and to meet the needs of Darien and the city of Norwalk as well.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. The first question goes to Martin. Martin, Connecticut residents have seen dramatic increases in utility bills, particularly electric, over the last few years. Connecticut has some of the highest utility rates in the United States, ranking in the top 5 for electricity and natural gas prices. What would you do in Hartford to lower the cost of utility bills?
Thank you very much. By the way, feel free to call me Tag. It's a lot easier. Okay, thank you. Obviously, we've all gotten whacked with our recent utility bills. I'm a big proponent of drill, baby, drill, and then all of the above policy. You can't limit your resources and then expect the prices not to rise. Our current utility bills include things that shouldn't be in the bill. You know, the famous public benefit, and I don't know where they came up with that term, public benefit. When you're subsidizing somebody else's electricity, when you're subsidizing certain things that shouldn't be in the bill, that they should have been done legislatively. There's no doubt in my mind that if you expand production, if you expand access to different forms of energy, you're going to be a lot better off than limiting yourself to forcing people to drive electric vehicles, to forcing yourself to have one source of all your power. Wind and solar is wonderful, but if it was really wonderful, you wouldn't need to subsidize it. If it made money, if it was profitable, it would make money on its own. You don't need taxpayer subsidies to subsidize something that's a good idea. So that's my position, is that I'm an all of the above proponent when it comes to energy. And this idea that we're going to possibly force people into electric vehicles, take away the right to use a gas-powered leaf blower, I mean, you're asking for higher prices in the process of doing this, and I'm an all-of-the-above approach person. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob?
Thank you very much. You know, folks got their electric bill in July and they are angry, and I don't blame them for being angry, and I am angry about it too. 70% of the increase in electric of the public benefit is because of the deal with Millstone. That was a Republican-led initiative. That is what has made the cost of electricity so much higher. We've asked Pura to extend that payback for the Millstone deal. They have refused. Senator President Looney and I sent a letter to Pura asking them to do it over many more months, which would reduce that shock to ratepayers, and they refused to do that. Pura has actually let some of these costs spiral out of control, and they should not have done that in that amount of time. Thankfully, since 2020, the Democrats have led a response on reforms with utility companies. And that, thankfully, we have done that, because the work that we have done over those 4 years have actually helped to make much needed reforms that had never been in place before. For example, we're now doing rates that are starting from zero rather than just adding on top of what is already there. In addition to that, we are working to make sure that we hold the utility companies accountable for every single cent that they spend. We've, in fact, through the laws that we've passed, we have had public utility companies have taken us to court 3 times over rates, and they have lost at every single turn because of the legislation that we've passed. So rates would have actually been higher had we not passed the reforms that we've done since 2020. So we're going to continue to work on that. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of rhetoric over public rates and the public benefit charge. The changes that my colleagues and my friends on the other side of the aisle have offered to make on the public benefits literally saves people $3 a month. And the other idea that they have is to put another person on Pura, neither one of which will really do much to help at all. So we know we have to come back in the legislature in January to work on solid solutions, continue to work on it. Working with the utilities is like a game of whack-a-mole. You think you solve a problem, then you have another problem pop up. But we're not going to use $200 million of money that's already accounted for to go to institutions of higher education and other places that are important in order for $3 a month, which is hardly what the ratepayers and the residents of the state want.
Thank you. This is the second question, and it goes to Tad. The state is experiencing an increase in extreme weather events, from floods and droughts to powerful storms. Between 2011 and 2023, the state experienced 16 declared federal emergencies from snow, tropical storms, and hurricanes. What can the state do to build resilience and protect people and property from severe weather?
Well, I'll start by saying I want to go back. I know you want to answer the question, but I need to respond to what Senator said. The legislation that he was talking about with regard to the Republican deal was made in 2017. That was 7 years ago. You're blaming something on something that happened 7 years ago. Finding somebody to blame is not leadership. That's not what it is. That's not how you solve problems, okay? So when it comes to all that stuff, folks, the Republicans asked to have an emergency session to go over this. The Democrats refused. Governor Lamont refused to even address it, okay? So don't tell me that we have solutions. You don't have solutions. You want to defer payments. That doesn't get rid of the payment. You're still making the same payment. You're just making it over a longer period of time, okay? Have some leadership. Go out and find a solution. Don't make that solution an electricity-only solution, do an all of the above proposal. With regard to your question on apparently climate change, the Earth has been here for 4.5 billion years. It has gone through hundreds of thousands of temperature fluctuations. We've had 5 known ice ages. Nobody knows why the ice age started. It got cold. Nobody knows why the ice age ended. It got warm, okay? We're human beings. We're very resilient. We're very creative. We can find our way to work around changes in the weather. I'm not concerned. My biggest concern on climate change is government's reaction to it. Government's reaction is raise taxes, limit freedom, and give more power to the government. Doesn't matter whether it was heating, cooling, climate change, climate catastrophe, doesn't matter what it is. The solution is always the same on that side. Raise taxes, limit freedom, give more power to the government. Having said that, I am more than willing to accommodate any climate change legislation that doesn't raise taxes, limit freedom, or give more power to the government. As a matter of fact, I'll even give you a proposed solution. If our leadership honestly believes that this is an issue, turn off the heat in the Capitol building. Turn it off. Put on a sweater. Lead by example. Don't turn on the air conditioning. You know? Get a little fan. Take care of yourself. Folks, they're not willing to lead and show us that they're willing to make sacrifices. No, they want you to make the sacrifice. Raise taxes, limit freedom, give more power to the government is not a solution in my mind. Thank you.
Bob, would you like the question read again? Or?
Yes, please.
Okay. The state is experiencing an increase in extreme weather events, from floods and droughts to powerful storms. Between 2011 and 2023, the state experienced 16 declared federal emergencies from snow, tropical storms, and hurricanes. What can the state do to build resilience and protect people and property from severe weather?
Well, I think it's a good question. I think a lot of folks understand that climate change is real, and it's here, and it's not something that we're talking about in theory, but it's actually in practice. And I think any thinking person not only understands it, but sees it. I mean, just look what happened to Florida recently with 2 major hurricanes that just came through there. In Connecticut, we're seeing the effects of climate change all the time now, where you see properties that flood that had not flooded in the past. You're seeing public works departments that used to plan for 20-year storms or 25-year storms that now plan for 100-year storms or 500-year storms that don't come only every 100 years or 500 years, they come every 2 to 3 years. And so we have to work in order to mitigate climate change the best we can. Now, there's many, many different ways in which we can do that will help our residents here in this community. One of which is to, obviously protect our coastline, make ourselves more resilient. I mean, in fact, we have lots of money, hopefully coming from the Inflation Reduction Act, which is the biggest climate change legislation federally that has ever been enacted. In Connecticut, we have passed a number of different bills that hopefully will impact the effects of climate change in a positive way. We're looking to make our coastlines much more resilient. We've got to make sure that when we rebuild our infrastructure, that we're doing it in a way that does take into effect these much stronger storms that we have. As a matter of fact, they just helped to bring $6 million to Norwalk for flood mitigation, because that was a shovel-ready project for people who live in their homes. And they get these crazy storms now, and they're worried whether or not they're going to be, if they have to move their cars out, or if they have to get their furniture out because water just keeps coming in. Whether or not we're going to keep losing power because of the fact that our trees keep falling and the wires are falling. So, a lot of these things do take funding. But we also, the more proactive we are at issues like this, I think the better off we are as a state. But we have to be serious about it. I think Connecticut has been serious about it. And as a matter of fact, in this year's bond bill that we did, which is our what we do with borrowing, we allocated, the legislature authorized over $60 million for the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, specifically on climate change type of legislation. and initiatives that I think that will help the residents of the state of Connecticut. So one last thing I just want to point out. One of the reasons why we're doing the Exit 16 to Exit 17 project on I-95 is because the highway floods. I grew up there. It never flooded when I was younger. But it sure flooded a few years ago, like 2 or 3 times, enough where people had to get out of their cars and get onto dry land. So now we've got to make sure that we change this and spend all this money because of climate change. So we've got to have this solved on the world level, on the national level, but we've also got to make sure that we are tackling this on a regional level and a state level as well, locally.
The third question to you, Tag. Do you think current Connecticut laws or policies need to change to improve the business climate?
Oh, absolutely. There's way too much regulation. There's way too much government control. You've got a government that during COVID told you whether or not your livelihood was essential. Where did they get that power? They took it. They took it. And what bothers me is we accepted it. How many people here were told that their livelihoods were non-essential? How can that possibly be an option for the government to allow people to allow the government to do that? The very first thing I would do if I got to Hartford is to make sure that power, which is still on the books, it's still there, I would take that away. Thank God to you, anyone here who was Mothers Against Masks, God bless you. Thank you very much for what you did, because you're the ones who stopped the silliness in the first place. They took 2 years away from your kids at school over this. Government has way too much power. Government should not tell businesses how to run their businesses. I'll ask you another question. Who do you think runs your business better, you or the government? Who do you think spends your money more efficiently, you or the government? If you think the government spends it more efficiently than you, absolutely, send it to them. Give it to them. In the name of efficiency, give them more money. If you think you spend your money more efficiently, keep it. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to make sure you get to keep your own money. I'm here so that you can run your own business, because I think you can do it better than a government who will tell you whether or not your livelihood is essential. Thank you.
Bob?
Can you give me the question again?
Sure. The question is, do you think current CT laws, Connecticut laws, or policies need to change to improve the business climate?
I think Connecticut's in a great place right now. In fact, we see people moving to the state like never before. We have a low unemployment rate. We have businesses coming in, and we've seen since at least 2020 now, where lots of new residents are calling Connecticut home for a number of reasons. We have small businesses opening up. We have great entrepreneurship. We have biotech that's happening, fintech. So I think Connecticut's in a great place. And one of the reasons is because of how government is presenting itself to the business community and to the public. Again, Connecticut has had a number of years of surpluses. We have a record rainy day fund. We've been paying down pension debt, legacy debt from 70 years ago, to the tune of over $7 billion. Our Wall Street ratings have increased. So is there always more to do? Absolutely, which is why we run for office, because we're enthusiastic about our state. We're enthusiastic about the future of Connecticut. We're enthusiastic about having our children and our grandchildren live here. So we love this state, and we want to do more. We want to support our businesses. We want to support especially our small businesses. So there's always ways in which we all can work together to help create more jobs and create that establishment where there's that opportunities for that, which is why, again, we have to have housing. We have to make sure that we're investing in higher education. We're graduating kids from school who are ready and able to get into the workforce. We're getting enough people who are ready for the building trades, if they want to be in the building trades. I mean, all these things matter. There's no one solution. There's no one way in which we make Connecticut, X, Y, or Z. There's always multiple points in which we work together in order to create an environment that is helping those who want to come into the state. So I know that there's a lot of folks actually moving back to Connecticut from other places because they're tired of some of the policies in other states, or it's actually not cheaper as people thought to live in other states. So I'm glad. Welcome back. And We missed you, but those of us who are here, we love it. We're going to stay here, and we always will believe in this state.
Thank you. Tag, the next one is for you. As we see an increasing occurrence of school shootings around the country, local communities such as Darien have implemented some protections, but many parents feel they are not enough. What additional support do you feel the state legislature could bring to our communities?
Well, first of all, not yet. Huh? Senator likes to talk about the disaster that happened at Parkland. And school shootings obviously are horrible. My personal opinion is that they will stop when people start taking a responsibility and a respect for human life. When you start treating human life as disposable, things happen. I want to talk about Parkland because this happens to be one of his favorite subjects. The shooter at Parkland was well known to the FBI. They had been notified about him some 30 times. Parkland had a government-designated gun-free zone. They had a government-designated officer who hid behind a concrete barricade until the shooting was done. They had a government-provided video security system that had a 7-minute delay. Within 6-7 minutes, the carnage was done. The shooter got out of the school under a government-provided escort who let the kids out, and the guy was found a couple hours later at a McDonald's because they knew who it was. The officer who hid behind the concrete barricade was sued by the parents, and a government court said that you can't blame somebody for not running into a life and death situation. Parkland is a perfect example of government incompetence on top of government stupidity, on top of government ignorance, on top of government failure. What's his solution? More government. I don't believe that, okay? Number one, stop demonizing people because they have a different point of view. Stop treating life as if it's disposable, okay? That's the first thing. That's a long-term solution. The first 92% of all shootings in this country take place in gun-free zones. You know why? Those people may be crazy, but they're not stupid. They're going to go to where it's the easiest target. Politicians know this. They know that 92% of mass shootings take place in gun-free zones, yet they still push gun-free zones as a solution. Why? Because it fits on a bumper sticker. That's the best they can do. Let's use some common sense. Take those gun-free zones away. Allow people to carry guns to protect themselves. Have police officers who are competent be at the schools, and the problem will not go away, but it'll be diminished, and it'll be much better for all of us. Thank you.
Gentlemen, excuse me, I was supposed to alternate who went first. It's just easier for me to keep track if we did it the same way each time. So, Bob, you'll get a chance to answer that question, and then I'll give you the next question. You'll be the first to answer it, okay?
Sure.
So, would you like me to repeat it, or?
Just about gun control, right?
Right.
Okay. So,
And schools in Darien.
right, okay. Just as a point of reference, I know the mayor of Parkland. We're friends. What happened in Parkland was awful. Also, when the shooting at Sandy Hook happened, that was something that just shook the state of Connecticut to the core. My kids were in elementary school at the time, and our principal had her daughter who went to that school. We had a teacher at my kids' elementary school who had a kid, their kid was at Sandy Hook that day. A friend of mine, acquaintance, was the vice principal of Sandy Hook at that time. So I know a lot of folks have connections to Sandy Hook and gun violence, and we take it very personally. And we don't want to see that happen again. The safety of our students is paramount. No child should go to school worrying whether or not they're going to make it home that day. No parent should send their kids to school wondering if their kids are going to make it home that day. We have choices we can make. We have laws we can pass that will help make our schools and our communities safer. And that's exactly what I've intended to do since Sandy Hook. I was proud to vote for that bill after Sandy Hook. It was personal to me. I've met some of the parents who lost children that day. It's personal what they've gone through. It's disgusting and terrible what they've had to endure from conspiracy theorists and others. And we'll continue to make sure that we pass strong gun legislation here in the state of Connecticut. Connecticut is the 4th safest state in the nation. We're number 3 when it comes to violent crime. One of the reasons is because we have strong gun safety laws. But I'll tell you, if you want to hear about a contrast, I'll give you a good contrast. We put a bill on the floor of the state Senate this past last year at about 8:30 at night. It said that it prohibited open carry, and it said that you can only buy 3 guns a month. So somehow, and the Republicans filibustered that from 8:30 at night until 4:30 the next morning. For some reason, they must think that you need 37 guns a year in order to have enough guns. I don't think so. As majority leader, I made sure that we stayed up all night until we passed that bill and sent it to the governor. It said that you can't have open carry, you can only buy 3 guns a month, and we made some changes to the ghost gun legislation. The reason why we had to make changes to ghost gun legislation, because we passed ghost gun legislation years ago. But because of the fact that now we see that ghost gun crimes are up 1,000% nationwide. And yes, the Second Amendment is there. But just like every other amendment, it has parameters. And the courts, the federal courts, and the state courts have codified everything that we have done so far. And the results are there when we look at the facts and we say Connecticut is a safer state today than it was before we passed legislation from Sandy Hook. Thank you.
Bob, you get this next question first. Darien has built or approved hundreds of new apartments in the past 10 years. Yet even with aggressive new development, Darien isn't even close to hitting the affordable housing target set by the state. Is it time for a new approach to building more affordable housing? What would you propose?
Well, housing is one of the things that's actually holding the state of Connecticut back. We need more housing construction all over the state of Connecticut. In fact, we have a lot of folks moving to Fairfield County. We have about 80 to 90,000 or maybe more jobs that are unfilled right now that we can't fill. And the governor likes to say we need more taxpayers, not more taxes. But we can't have more taxpayers if we don't have places for them to live. I see students who are graduating college who don't have a place to live. I see seniors who want to downsize who don't have a place to live. Actually, Darien has done some good things. You have inclusionary zoning, you're building close by the railroad station and by the highway. That's great. We just need to do more. We need to do more all throughout the state of Connecticut. It cannot be of the burden of Norwalk and Stamford and Bridgeport and the cities to just build housing. Every community needs to do it because some people want to stay in the communities in which they've lived. Some students who grew up here want to be able to live in Darien. And you think about the real estate market, where maybe 20 or 30 years ago, an entry for a house was maybe $300,000, $200,000. Well, now it's $1 million. I don't know how many students who just get out of college can afford $1 million house. And how many seniors are downsizing to $1 million property. So there's lots of things we can do, but it is important for us to think of housing as an economic driver, because housing is something that is holding us back economically, and we will not be able to really see our full potential till we address housing as part of it. And again, we spend a lot of money on our youth when it comes to education, higher education, and everything in between. Last thing we want is them graduating and moving out of state after all that, and sending really smart kids to another state, someplace else, with our money and our investment.
Bob, you get the next question first,
doesn't-
because I gave, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so focused on doing the thing right from now on. I'm so sorry,
Not
Tag.
a problem, not a problem. There's a couple of things that I admit I just don't understand. You wanna talk about housing, but we're building apartments left and right. Apartments, in my opinion, don't help home ownership. It's transitory. I would rather find condominiums or condos or whatever. We're overbuilding our grid, our electric grid, our transportation system. It's very difficult to drive with all the congestion that's going on now. The government got involved in housing, if I remember, back a couple of years ago. Government gets involved in something and it gets mucked up, okay? Let the free market dictate what needs to be done. The government got involved in the banking industry a number of years ago and we had a banking crisis. The government got involved in the housing industry and we had a housing crisis. 2008, there was the biggest collapse going. Why? Because the government got involved in dictating things in housing. Government got involved in the student loan program, and how's that working out, okay? Government is not the solution. Building more apartments is not the solution. Letting in 25 million illegal immigrants doesn't help the housing situation, okay? Trust the free market. Free market capitalism has fed more children, created more jobs, generated more wealth, and gotten more people out of poverty than any unlimited number of government programs. I believe in free market capitalism. Have faith in people like Milton Friedman, Thomas Sowell, Frederick Hayek. They knew what they were doing. It works. It works. Don't put your faith and trust in a government that every time they touch something, it gets more expensive and it messes up. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob, the next question. Do you think it's time to revisit the possibility of implementing tolls, which could be used to subsidize highway infrastructure and reduce congestion?
Well, thank you. That's a great question. I don't know that we need to revisit tolls at this time. We had that debate. We didn't have the votes to pass it. And, we are seeing money coming in from the bipartisan infrastructure law. We are doing more construction now than we ever have before. So at this point, it's not something that I think we're going to entertain because we simply don't have the votes to get it passed. So.
Okay. Thank you. Tag?
No.
Okay. All right. Gentlemen, I think it's time for, well, actually, Tag,
I can talk for 8 minutes? Cool.
No, only 5.
Not sure how that's actually accurate. But.
I don't know. So do we want to move to closing statements, or would you like to?
No, that's fine.
That's fine with you. Okay, let us move to closing statements. You had, I'm afraid, you had the opening statement initially, and Bob, you get the closing statement initially.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right, sure.
Thank you for being adjusting, gentlemen, to my messing up the order.
No problem. Once again, thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this debate. I think you've heard a good contrast as to the candidates and what we stand for, what our philosophies are, and kind of how we view the world at large. So I think that this always gives us an opportunity and the voters to see what we stand for. I just want to say to the residents of Norwalk and Darien, because we're not going to have one in Norwalk, that, and I hope they hear this as well, that I continue to love this job. I continue to love to represent these two communities in which I believe I have a good impact. I love standing up for you. I always talk about how public service is my passion, whether it's bringing funding back to our communities, whether it's passing good laws like gun legislation laws, or protecting a woman's right to choose, or passing the largest tax cuts in the state of Connecticut's history. All those things are really, really important. But also what's really important is helping my constituents one-on-one. whether it's helping them with an issue with the Department of Motor Vehicles, or whether it's helping them with a health insurance company because they're caught up in red tape, or seeing them get the help that they need and when nobody else was able to help them. I love those kinds of things, and that's really so much a part of the job that fulfills me. I love, again, delivering for Norwalk and Darien over $300 million of funding back to these communities, and that's not including even funding for like our teachers' retirement. Do you know Darien gets $17 million a year from the state of Connecticut for teachers' retirement, because the community, this town doesn't have to pay for that. Norwalk gets about $40 million for teachers' retirement. We've seen our bond rate increase. We've seen Connecticut continue to move forward. I want to keep standing up for you, and I would please ask respectfully for your support. And last thing I would say, vote down ballot. Connecticut has one of the largest drop-offs down ballot. Please vote down ballot. It's really, really important. Thank you so much.
Tag, your closing statement.
Thank you. I want to remind everybody that I did a back-of-the-envelope calculation, and between income taxes, sales tax, everything else, between Norwalk and Darien, we give Hartford somewhere around $1.2, $1.3 billion. I don't know if that's a right number. Maybe Senator knows. Do you think you're getting $1.2 billion a year service? Yep, we're getting some chump change back. You know, that's nuisance money as far as I'm concerned. You can get a lot more back. We're giving Hartford $1.3 billion a year, and you're getting $2 million here, $4 million there. I could get that just by being a nuisance person. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. I really do. And I especially want to thank the Duff supporters who came out, and I don't mean that sarcastically. My assumption is you have no idea who I am. You never heard of me, and if you heard anything about me at all from the Democrats, my guess is it wasn't favorable, but that's okay. I understand. I get it. But you came out anyway. You came out to see for yourself. Trust but verify. It's a great program. It's a great idea. Thank you for coming. I'm assuming there's some of you who are thinking right now, you know, I actually agree with a lot of what he says. And if you do, I take that as a personal victory. Thank you. And if you consider that, I want you to consider one more thing. If he loses this race, you think he's going to go away? No chance. He'll be back in 2 years. He craves this power. He's not going away. And if he comes back in 2 years after a loss, maybe, just maybe, he'll be a little more humble. He'll be a little more retrospective. Maybe he'll think that, you know, those people who believe in Milton Friedman, Thomas Sowell, Frederick Hayek really do know what they're talking about. Maybe those people who follow Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton about limited government really is a good idea. And if that were to happen, would that be a bad thing? Just asking. Reasonable people can find a reasonable solution to any problem. My name is Martin Tagliaferro. I would appreciate your support, and I ask for your vote in November. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And now we turn to the Legislative District Forum, using the same format as the previous forum. Where's the box? So we're ready to go. It is my pleasure to introduce the candidates for the state legislature for the 141st District. To my left, Tracy Mara, and to my far left, Sheila Quinn. Tracy is the Republican and has the nomination from the Independent Party, and Sheila is the Democrat. So, because your name came out of the box first, Tracy, you give the opening statement, please.
Okay. Thank you so much to the League of Women Voters. I really appreciate all your all's effort. I know that this wasn't necessarily easy to put together, but I'm very appreciative that we have made it to this point. I think that this is where democracy happens. This is how you make your decisions, and this is an important night. I also thank my opponent just for running and being here. I think that this is, it's important. It keeps us on our toes, and it gets us talking about the issues that are most important to us. So I am running for re-election as your state representative. And I do believe that the voices here in the 141st District deserve to be heard. I think so many times that we have politicians that maybe they're running, or maybe they've been in the position for too long, and they kind of lose sight of who they're supposed to represent, which is you. And then they start representing their party or maybe government bureaucracy. So I am committed to doing things different. I am committed to ensuring that it is your voices that are heard, and my priorities are your priorities. In my first term, I have focused on the things that have mattered most to you. Things like education, things like zoning, things like road safety and the traffic. Always with local decision at the forefront. And I have been recognized for my bipartisan work. The Women of Excellence I was named Woman of Excellence by the National Foundation of Women Legislators. I was appointed by House leadership, both Democratic and Republican, to the National Task Force on Artificial Intelligence, Cybersecurity, and Privacy. I was the only House legislator to be chosen. And as a pharmacist and a healthcare provider, I have worked to make sure legislation like women's reproductive health care, regulating cannabis, and expanding access to Narcan. Thank you. That went fast.
Okay, thank you very much. Sheila?
Hi, hello, good evening. Thank you for coming. My name is Sheila Quinn, and I'm running for the 141st seat. I just want to start by thanking my family. They have stuck with me through this incredible journey that I've been on, and I couldn't do it without them. I also want to thank Tracy for coming and being a good sport, and I'm so sorry that the other candidate got sick. He has COVID, and I wish for his speedy recovery. I want to thank Darien and Rowayton. I've knocked on over 4,500 doors while I've been a candidate, and they were all of your doors. So I am really humbled by your support. And with that said, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for putting this together. And I think one of the most important words in that statement are women. Women's rights are under consistent attack right now. If elected as your representative, I will unequivocally champion women's issues and reproductive rights. The efforts right now in our state are being written to roll back the rights that we have all lived with for so many years. As a mother of 2 young women, I want to ensure that all women will have the rights that I fought for when I was younger, and that we will all be able to live in a safe state. Being represented by the minority in Hartford does not advance our well-being either. As a moderate Democrat, I will have a seat at the table, and our community will have a voice. I will work to shape legislation for Darien and Rowayton. And I will also make sure that all of my decisions keep in mind the importance of local control in our communities. So who am I, and what do I stand for? Keeping our public schools strong and our children safe. Working on incentives for small businesses. As a small business owner myself, I know the trials and tribulations of keeping that business going. Protecting our property values, and without protecting our coastlines, our property values will lose a lot. So I want to keep that always in the forefront of the decisions that I make going forward.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
oh,
Okay. Because you made the first opening statement, Ms. Quinn gets the first question. Both parties agree that some form of tax reduction is needed in Connecticut, but differ on specifics. What would you recommend to reduce the tax burden?
well, it's a big question, and I think that there are many incentives that we can do in order to get programs set up for people that are paying too much taxes, like our seniors. I also believe that Connecticut is and has had the biggest tax reduction ever in the history of the state. And I believe strongly that we're working in that direction. And sadly, all across the world, prices continue to go up, and we still are having to struggle with that in our communities.
Thank you. Ms. Mara?
Thank you so much. So yes, in fact, we did have a great tax reduction in this term, and the reason why is because the Republicans put that forward. So my proposal moving forward is to make sure that we protect our fiscal guardrails. And I know maybe many of you don't understand or don't know what this is because it's a little bit of a lingo thing. But back in 2017, the Republicans, back when we had a more even House and more even Senate, put forward these fiscal guardrails because we were so out of control with our liabilities. We have a lot of pensions that we have not been paid for, and these are pensions that these are promises that we have made to our teachers. These are promises that we have made to our state workers that we need to value and we need to pay for. So into 2017, we put through these guardrails, and what that did is it puts a cap. When we have volatility that comes into the state as revenue, we can't just spend that. That revenue then goes into a bucket. This bucket is one of two things. One, it covers our rainy day fund. And thank goodness we had that when we were in COVID. And the second place that puts that is covering our pensions. Now, why is this important and how does this help with our taxes? Because when you pay down debt, you end up with hundreds of millions of dollars that you're not going to have to pay in the future. So that money is something that we can look at either putting into pots that we want to build up, or can go back to you, because that's where it really should be.
Thank you. Tracy, you get the next question first. The Long Island Sound is one of our most cherished resources and is essentially commercially and essential commercially, environmentally, and recreationally. Every year we see beach closures due to water quality, and a recent Save Our Sound report says the Sound is under threat from marine debris, shoreline erosion, and sewer discharge. What would you do in Hartford to protect this valuable resource for future generations?
Thank you. I think that that's such an important question because as a coastal state, this is something that we need to be focused on environmentally. And I am really proud of the work that our town is doing on this issue. And I think so many times tonight when I talk about many of the questions that we have, I'll talk about where the state comes in, where we come in locally, and where you can come in as residents. And then at some points we'll talk about federal. In this case, we do have a town, we have the Coastal Commission, and the Coastal Commission actually works with the Unified Water Study. And what they do is they go out and they collect water samples. Now this is all along the coast here in Connecticut, so many of the towns are part of this, as well as Long Island, and they're looking at the health of the sound, and they're looking at the nitrogen in the water. So with this information, it's data collection. We know that from Darien down towards the city that we have a lot higher nitrogen concentration in the water, which creates algae in the water, which is unsafe for us. And then what do we do with this information? I think this is where the state comes in. So already this past year, we actually passed a bill that would be transparency around Metro North as they're putting chemicals along the line. So maybe you know, maybe you don't know, but when you're dealing with the train lines, they do put down pesticides along those train lines. So we're asking them to be very transparent about what you're putting on. So then we know how much runoff we're gonna get. The second and third issues that we're gonna have to look at is sewer and rain runoff. And this is definitely a place where the state needs to come in and assist some of these towns. We know here in Darien, flooding is an issue, and we are actually shovel ready with some of our flooding things. So I would love to talk to some of our senators to get some support to get funds back here to help with the flooding that we have. But also in Norwalk and Stamford, they need to look at some of their runoff as well, because we do have to protect our sound.
Thank you. Sheila, would you like the question again, or?
Yeah, please.
The Long Island Sound is one of our most cherished resources and is essential commercially, environmentally, and recreationally. Every year, we see beach closures due to water quality, and a recent Save Our Sound report says the sound is under threat from marine debris, shoreline erosion, and sewer discharge. What would you do in Hartford to protect this valuable resource for future generations?
Well, we can pretty much say that the nitrogen or whatever's in the water is due to pollution, and we do need to be very diligent about that situation in terms of the climate crisis that's going on in our country and our world. It's real, it's happening because of fossil fuels, it's happening because the water temperatures are higher and bacteria grows, and it is a very serious problem. But my question is, where is the money from Hartford to find ways to solve some of these problems, and why hasn't Darien ever received any of them? I don't really understand how we can have all these problems, but when it comes to actually getting money to try to get them fixed from Hartford, the capital of our state, it doesn't seem to be happening. I think we can mitigate a lot of these problems with our coastlines. Our coastlines are a treasure, our national treasure, really. And without saving our coastlines, we will lose value in our property, and we will lose value in this town and the towns around our communities.
Thank you. You get the next question first. Darien has built or approved hundreds of new apartments in the past 10 years, yet even with aggressive new development, Darien isn't even close to hitting the affordable housing targets set by the state. Is it time for a new approach to building more affordable housing? What would you propose?
Yeah, housing is a big problem. And the reluctance to lose local control, or that's what the community thinks they're going to lose, is local control if you have more affordable housing in our community. It's actually sad. But we have actually raised some of the affordable housing with the apartments that have gone in, and I am happy about that. I think it went from 2% to 4%. It still is under the threshold, but it is a step in the right direction. And I also really do applaud the apartments. I think it's a wonderful way to raise our tax base. Maybe we could also use some of that to help with our coastline and all the other mitigating problems with transportation and our roads. But we can also keep our community alive, vibrant, and I'm all for it. I know I'm not 100% answering the housing because it is a very complex problem, but I know we are headed in the right direction, and with the Nielsen property selling over at Thorndale, I know that they also will be having more affordable housing in those units, and I really do applaud that. The problem is with all the thousands of people that are coming into our town, how are we going to get around, and what are we going to do with the aging infrastructure? But that's probably for another question.
Tracy?
Thank you. Again, I will talk about this in the form of where does the state come in, where does local government come in, and then where do we have free market. And particularly with housing, I think if you just look online and you see some of the responses, you know that so many people have opinions on housing when you're talking about your neighborhood or the traffic or the schools and how that's going to be affected. So the most important thing when we talk about adding in housing is that we get input from you. We need to hear what's going on here that's going to affect that. So when we talk about local decision making and why I think we need to keep the state out of this as far as pushing a mandate on how much we have, besides the 10% is a very random number. Who says we have to have 10% versus Norwalk only having 10% versus Stamford only 10%? I think that was a random number that someone came up with, and that might be something we need to reassess as well. But coming back to local decision making and how proud I am of what Darien has done, because we now have inclusionary zoning, and Senator Duff mentioned this earlier, and I'm very appreciative that he did. What inclusionary zoning means that the town has decided that if you are going to build more than 4 units of a multifamily housing unit, you have to have 14% of that be deed restricted or affordable. Because we know that in order to increase our capacity to have affordable housing, we have to keep building a higher percentage, right? So since 2020, we have built, I believe it's almost 30% of our housing is affordable housing since 2020. So yes, because you have X amount of houses here, it only moves it a little bit, but I think we're going in the right direction, and I am very proud of how Darien is moving forward. The governor came here, as well as the Commissioner of Economic and Community Development. I invited them my first term. I did not have press around. I did not make this a political stunt. I really wanted them to see what we're doing in Darien. And you know what he said? How can we do this in other towns?
Thank you. The next question goes to you first. According to a July 2024 article in the Stamford Advocate on road congestion, 3 parts of I-95 in Connecticut and 1 stretch on the Merritt ranked in the top 10 and 25 of the busiest corridors in the U.S., respectively. What recommendations do you have to ease traffic flow and make public transportation a more desirable option for commuters? I'm sorry,
sorry.
that's to you.
Thank you. I'll take that. How about? So transportation is a tricky. This is, again, I come back to where the role is of government, because there's a part that's local, right? There's a part that's town, there's a part that's state. A lot of this is going to come in on the federal side, because we need funds from the federal government also to help with I-95. I know right now we're having issues with DOT with our engineers. We don't have enough. So if TAG can pop in and figure out some engineers to come our way to the government, I think we need them, because we actually have to get DOT. They have funds, and they need to be able to have the staff to get things moved forward. So that is one way that we need to look at. We need to look at the labor that we have. The other 2 issues that we can talk about is the trains. And I know many people in this community use the trains back and forth, and now so many people are going 5 days a week. And yes, you have to do standing room only sometimes along the trains, and we have done such a good job at building these transit-oriented communities right around the train station, and then we cut the cars on the train, and then we have some less stops along the way. So that's one of the ways. The second way that we need to look at, first is getting some more engineers at DOT. The second is the trains. The third thing that I want to look at is our trucks that are coming in. And Greenwich, there is a weigh station. This weigh station is not actually opened very much. And it is my thought, as the truckers that come through, they know when it is open and when it is closed. So they know that they can come I-95 and they can avoid stopping at the weigh station. And so that's where they come. They come in I-95 and they avoid that. If we actually had that weigh station up and running, and then some of these trucks were diverted to other interstates, then I think that would ease some of the congestion that we have as well.
Thank you. Sheila?
Yes, I was yesterday knocking in Rowayton on Wilson Avenue, and I almost got killed by a truck. And I went into a home, a wonderful woman who was supporting me, but okay. But and she mentioned, she counted all of the trucks. So what's happening is that they're coming off the highway onto Wilson. They're supposed to be going on McKinney, and they're not. So why can't somebody come in and get that problem solved? I mean, we've had plenty of opportunities. It's been going on for 2 years, and it's still going on. And these poor people who spent $3 million on their house on Wilson Avenue are having to deal with truck after truck after truck, and there has to be some solution. Also, they are ruining kind of that 136 curve going onto, to get onto 136 to go to the highway. And somehow we've got to change Google Maps, or we have to do something, because it's really destroying the beautiful town. And I'm speaking about Rowayton because I was just there, but I live on a busy street, and the trucks are barreling down, and I don't see any solution for it. And Hoyt Avenue is really a complete nightmare with no sidewalks. If we could put in some sidewalks, if the town could try to find a way to do this, then those people wouldn't have to drive to the train station. And putting up sidewalks up the roads, and I spoke to a former selectman once about it, and she said, well, we can't put sidewalks in unless they go directly into the town area or something like that, and it just doesn't make any sense for the 21st century. I mean, the town is really set up like, the 50s and the 70s, and I think it needs to be upgraded, and guess what we can do? Get money from the state to do that. Why hasn't it been done? I don't know. It just seems like we are living in this town taking the money from our own citizens to make repairs for our town because people don't want to deal with Hartford. And I don't think that's going to be the way the future is going to go, not with 1,500 people living in our community trying to get from point A to point B.
Thank you. The next question goes to you, Sheila. Small businesses are critical to Connecticut's economy. However, according to CNBC's America's Top States for Business in 2024 rankings, Connecticut was ranked 32nd overall, as well as the 8th costliest state in the U.S. to run a business. What measures would you propose to make it more attractive for entrepreneurs and small businesses to operate in Connecticut?
Well, as a business owner and living in Connecticut, we have distribution in Connecticut, so I understand some of the funny little laws that this state has regarding that. And I believe that small businesses make up there are over 350 small businesses. That's over 41% of the residents of Connecticut work in a small business. So I think we do flourish in small businesses. I think in businesses general across the country are very difficult to run because of things like healthcare costs for employees and other such matters, huge high rents. I mean, the rents in Darien for a brand new business, it's almost unaffordable. So how can you expect a small young entrepreneur to do that? Well, there are some things that Connecticut has set up through the Democratic leadership of trying to help businesses, which is the Small Business Administration, and it's also this recovery bridge loan program that has a long-term fixed rate of 4.5% that you can actually have cash flow, because you can't run a business without cash flow. Mm-hmm. So I really do want to go forward in helping businesses. We have so many more opportunities in Darien. It's such an exciting thing, but I also want to make sure that the businesses are unique to our town, so we're not bringing in a bunch of huge chain stores and changing the whole landscape of our town. And, we have to give opportunities, because usually the people that create small businesses are young entrepreneurs, and we have to give them an opportunity by creating grants and programs for them. And that means going to the leadership and getting that done, which I know I can do because I have a lot of experience in small businesses.
Thank you. Tracy?
Thank you. Are we going to get to energy later? Okay, then we'll touch on it.
We might. I don't know. We have a couple other questions that I think people will appreciate.
That's okay. Let's touch on this now, because I think as I talk to residents in this town that have small businesses, one of their biggest concerns is their increase in energy costs, and that is actually when you are so close on what you're making in a small business, and then all of a sudden you have a huge increase in energy cost, that really affects your bottom line. And I appreciate my opponent here mentioning healthcare costs, because we have a decrease in amount of healthcare insurers that are now in the state, and that is crippling some of our small businesses. When you have less choice for your healthcare insurance, that is going to affect your bottom line. And the other issue that I know that some of the people in town have mentioned is the cost of labor has gone up because the cost of living has gone up, because the cost of energy has gone up, because the cost of insurance has gone up. So everybody is asking for raises. So this is cyclical, as you can see. I think there are ways that we can break the cycle on this, and one of them is to get back in and fix our energy bill, which we can do.
Thank you. The next question goes to you first. Tracy, do you think it is time to revisit the possibility of implementing tolls, which could be used to subsidize highway infrastructure and reduce congestion?
So, no, I don't think that tolls is necessarily the way. I think I have already mentioned the issues that I think can help the congestion previously with your question.
Thank you.
I'll save my
Sheila?
time.
I lived in Europe for a year, in Italy, and every single half mile or something, you have to pay a toll. So no, I've had enough with the tolls. I'm fine without the tolls. If we can find the revenue to clean up our highways and our roads in a different way. But I did want to bring one other thing up. The energy bills are not going to make or break a business. They're a little bit high right now, but that high price is going to be coming down within several months. So it's not like it's a forever high price. I just wanted to make that clear about businesses, as I've had to pay many business bills in my day. I'm not too worried about the electric bill, but I just wanted to point that out. So no, I do not have any interest in tolls if we can avoid it.
Okay, thank you. The next question goes to you first, Sheila. As our school special education costs continue to increase, the reimbursement rate by the state has generally decreased. This has a negative impact on our schools and taxpayers. What would you do to alleviate the burden on our community?
Can you repeat it?
Sure. As our school special education costs continue to increase, the reimbursement rate by the state has generally decreased. This has a negative impact on our schools and taxpayers. What would you do to alleviate the burden on our community?
Well, that's a funny question, because nobody can predict that you're going to have a group of kids that have special needs. The fact that we had a decrease in the ECS cost-sharing program was really unfortunate, and it was very unfortunate that our town chose to cut our school budget $2 million. I'm a huge proponent of public schools. I think as a public servant, sending your kids to the public school is so important, although it can be difficult sometimes. Middle school was a total nightmare, but we did work through it. We made it happen. We advocated and got it going on, but we worked with the special ed community there, the counselors, the teachers. We got the extra help we needed for both my kids. And Olivia's at University of Michigan, surviving, and is going to be a doctor. So she really, really was extremely successful in our public school system. And I think if for this period of time, when there's this influx of a situation post-pandemic or whatever it may be, gun violence in our country, which is causing so many mental issues for our children, we really do have to just embrace it and pay for it, because that's the way it is. And we have to protect our children, keep them safe, and get them to mature and grow and be in the world as successful people. So if it takes more money, then it takes more money.
Thank you. Tracy?
Thank you. I think if it takes more money, it takes more money is a very good start to what I have to say here. We have pushed, the Republican caucus has pushed to fully fund our ECS funding over and over. That is the portion that the state gives back to the schools, to the local boards of eds to fund these schools. What might be interesting for you to know is that per student, Darien gets $103 from the state. Norwalk only gets $1,000, still not enough. I mean, maybe you don't know how much it costs to educate these kids, but it's somewhere around $20,000. So we had ARPA funds that we needed to redistribute. And the choice for where the ARPA funds went, which I chose to send them back to the schools, to our K to 12. It went to higher education. I absolutely support higher education. That's not the question here, but to the tune of, if you add up all of the funds that we give to UConn, including per student, along with the ARPA funds that we have recently given them, $34,758 per student. This is what the state has given UConn per student. And this is not what the students are already paying for. And we know even that includes students that are not from Connecticut, because there's actually a higher amount of those students now. And the colleges, the local colleges, get $17,705. And Darien gets $100 per student. That's an issue. And I think that, yes, it is about money, but it's about priorities. And I want our kids to grow up, and I want them to be successful, and I want them to go to college or to a trade school or just be good citizens in life. In order to do that, we have to fund and we have to support our K through 12, and I am an adamant supporter of that.
Thank you. The next question goes to you first, Tracy. As we see an increasing occurrence of school shootings around the country, local communities such as Darien have implemented some protections, but many parents feel they are not enough. What additional support do you feel the state legislature could bring to our communities?
So thank you very much. I did vote for the gun safety bill. I do have an A for Connecticut Against Gun Violence, and I have worked with them for many years. I actually participated in a Turn Darien Orange. I don't know if anybody is aware of that, but that's Connecticut Against Gun Violence's awareness for gun safety. So 2 years in a row, I was responsible for that here in Darien. I have always been a proponent of gun safety. What we need to focus on now is we need to focus on the illegal guns that are out there. And we need to start empowering our police to get the illegal guns out of our system. One of the ways that we can do this, and we could talk a little bit about the police accountability bill, because the police accountability bill that happened back in 2020 hampered what our police can do to keep our communities safe. And one of the ways that it hampered what they could do is that they can no longer, if they've pulled a car over and they have consent from the driver, if they suspect there's drugs or firearms in the car, they cannot ask for consent to search the car. That was one of the ways that the police were actually able to get many illegal guns off of the market. I think we need to be talking to our police, which I do regularly talk to Chief Marin and Chief Walsh in Norwalk, to understand how we can help them do their jobs better, because our laws are in place and we are doing great here in Connecticut with our gun safety laws.
Thank you. Sheila?
Yes, hi. I also have an A rating from the CT Gun Advocate Group, and I'm very proud of that. That was based on my answers that I answered when I took the survey. So I'm a huge proponent to changing gun laws in this country. And one of them is to get the assault rifles out of the hands of everybody. No human being working, unless they're in a war, needs those kinds of guns, period. And they need to be taken out of the system across the country, because that's what's killing our kids. I also would, hate to be a police officer now, because you never know who has a gun or who doesn't have a gun. That wasn't the way it was when I was growing up. And it's really just, it's just such a tragic situation. I'm thinking of what Bob Duff said about his personal connection to Sandy Hook, and that just the repeated carnage of a rifle that makes no sense for any human being to have. That's just a regular citizen in this country, and it just goes beyond reason, and it still, nothing changes and nothing happens. I hope I'm answering the question. I got a little bit wrapped up there. So what exactly did you ask? To get them off the street, right? Now, what do I think about gun violence in the schools?
I asked if there were, that even though things have been done, Darien
Well,
parents
definitely
don't
not
feel that
having-
it's enough.
Right,
And
well-
what additional support do you feel the state could provide?
I mean, luckily, I do feel safe in Darien. I'm very, very happy about that. And they did spend the money on the armed guards, which, you know, I'm not sure that that kind of allocation for those funds was exactly what made sense for this town, but it did happen, and I think it needed to in a way because parents were so freaked out about what's happening nationally that we had to show some kind of movement in that direction. But for our schools to be filled with a bunch of armed guards, no. I think if the school system starts going into that direction, I think it's going to be, well, it already has in many communities. It's a very sad, sad situation, and every community has to work together to get these guns off the streets, whether they're illegal ghost guns or these horrible assault rifles.
Thank you. Then the next question goes to you first, Sheila. Connecticut residents have seen dramatic increases in utility bills. Here's that energy question, particularly electric, over the last few years.
Yep.
Connecticut has some of the highest utility rates in the United States, ranking in the top 5 for electricity and natural gas prices. What would you do in Hartford to lower the cost of utility bills?
Yeah, that's a big one. I think one of the things that we need to do is start to work together in a nonpartisan way and stop pointing fingers. Like Bob Duff said, it's like whack-a-mole. It starts going crazy. Once you do this, then you do this, and then everybody's blaming each other, and then the press goes crazy and starts to make these big stories about it. And I don't think having a one-day session in the middle of the summer was going to solve the problem. This is a very long-term problem that needs to be handled in a very long-term situation because the problem is so complicated, the energy problem. And I do believe that the whole dynamic of the high cost is partially due to this Millstone agreement that happened in 2017 with this agreement for 10 years to keep the kilowatt price what it was, a fixed price. And I do need to learn more about it. I'm just a regular citizen right now, so I have a lot to learn. But I am really interested in it, and I want to try to find a solution that isn't about blaming and to help the people of our town, because that's one of the first questions I started getting in all the doors that I knocked was, what are you going to do about this? What are you going to do about this? And I did a lot of research, and I know that it's a very complicated problem, and I really do want to see it enacted. I know we do have money from the Inflation Reduction Act to try to promote other forms of energy sources for our communities. And I know a lot of the Republicans voted that down, and it's really too bad because I think if we look into the future, we want to go into the future of energy, and that is not, slicing off tops of mountains to frack and everything else. And I understand it's happening, and I know that there has to be many sources of energy, but I think we have to be very careful about that. Even though our community, our town, 40% of the energy comes from nuclear power plant, from Millstone. So it's complicated, and I don't know all the answers. I will look into it, and I'm a big proponent of the future of energy.
Thank you. Tracy, to you, the utility bill question?
Yes, thank you so much. So the public benefit charge, I know that my opponent mentioned that this would not break a small business, but when you go from $700 in your public benefit from one month to $1,400 the next month, tell me that that's not going to have an effect on your business if you have a very low margin. And what the public benefit does, and I appreciate Senator Duff explaining earlier that it has the Millstone power plant in it. Absolutely, it does. This has nuclear power in it. And nuclear power right now, we have a set buy at 4.9 cents per kilowatt hour, whereas our natural gas, which comes in a single pipeline in through New York, it fluctuates. So right now it's somewhere around 3 cents per kilowatt hour. Sometimes it's lower than nuclear. Sometimes it's more. When it is more, we get a kickback on nuclear in your bill. You never knew that before because this wasn't divided out. So I really appreciate Senator Fazio putting a bill in that would actually divide these out so you can see that there is a public benefit, that there's a local delivery, that there's a transmission, and that there's a supply charge. You can actually see what's there. So yes, I would vote for nuclear. I would vote for it again and again and again. 40% of your energy here. How important is that? And we only have 2 nuclear places in the whole of New England, and because so many of them were closed, and we still only have 1 pipeline. We know over the next 15 years, we are actually going to have such an increase of energy usage, and we have to keep up with it. I would propose and will propose we look at more nuclear energy. That Millstone power plant has room on its area to get more nuclear energy, and that's where we need to go. Sure, I would love to have an extra pipeline come in, but we rely on New York for that. But we can get into we can get into session, and we can get the public benefit out of your bill. It is a tax, and that's not where it should be.
Thank you. It's time for closing statements, and you get to go first.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. I appreciate you sharing your evening with us and participating in democracy. This is how it should work, and I'm really happy that the League of Women Voters really came through for us. And as this debate really comes to a close, I just want to reaffirm the reason why I am running for re-election for your state representative. I do believe that this race is about our community and our values. It is not about political rhetoric. It is not about party lines. This district deserves someone that's going to listen to the people of this district. Over the past term, I have advocated for what matters. I have advocated for improving our schools. I secured $21 million of bonding to our HHR project. I have supported our local businesses. I have worked to make our roads safer, particularly in Rowayton as well. And I am pushing to ensure that we have accountability. And I work across the aisle because I believe real solutions can really only come when you have collaboration. I'm running for re-election to continue this work. I do love this work. So I ask, as you go to the polls on November 5th, I ask for your trust and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Sheila?
Thank you all for coming tonight. This is a pivotal election nationally and locally. It's not just enough to have a voice in Hartford. We need someone to deliver to our communities. I've had the privilege, and I've spoken to almost 1/3 of the registered voters, sometimes in 100-degree weather. And if I'm elected, I will continue the outreach to voters in Darien and Rowayton. I will do this by having open forum discussions and always wanting to hear from constituents, their feelings and their concerns. I do not want to hide as a politician. I want to be very, very vocal. I am humbled by the task and I'm ready to serve. I have a background and experience. I have the stamina to do this job. I see the work that needs to be done in terms of bringing money back to our community. It's one thing to love your community, but as a representative, you actually need to bring that money back to our town. And everybody voted on the bonds, the education bonds. And yes, I'm very grateful that Tracy did that, but you know, it's more than that. It's about opening up our community so that we can secure those funds for our town. And I see that the work that needs to be done in our district, and I listened to all of you. I heard everything that you said. I've really pounded the pavement. And I will continue this outreach effort to connect with this community. And I'm very respectfully asking for your vote on November 5th. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just want to remind, since if you've come here, it means you're interested in voter education and learning, and I want to just remind you of 2 other things. Please use vote411.org as a source of information. It's managed by the League of Women Voters, and it is entirely nonpartisan. Gives you information about where to vote, where your polling place is, who's on the ballot. And one thing that it also mentions we all need to be aware of, there's a referendum question on the ballot. It asks the people of Connecticut to allow our Constitution to be amended to allow for absentee voting for all eligible voters. So thank you very much for attending this evening. It was great to see us here in person, and we all know that an informed electorate is critical for our healthy democracy. So thank you very much. Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Sorry. Just another minute. Thank you. Again, thank you for attending tonight's forum. We'd like to express our appreciation to the candidates, to our moderator, Patricia Rossi, to the Bipartisan Questions Committee, timers, Jim Cameron and the incredible team at TV 79, our first selectman, John Zagrodzky, and of course, Darien Town Hall for allowing us to host this evening's forum. As we close, we would like to remind everyone that the League of Women Voters holds a unique and vital role in fostering civic engagement and encouraging informed participation. Our mission is to ensure that every voice is heard, and we believe an engaged citizenry is essential to maintaining a healthy democracy. But we can't do this alone. Volunteers are at the heart of the League and everything we do. If tonight resonated with you, or if you want to contribute to building a stronger democracy, we need volunteers like you to help us continue our mission. Please consider joining the League of Women Voters of Darien. Members of our executive board will be here down at the front if you would like any additional information. Lastly, please share with anyone who missed tonight's forum that it was recorded by Darien TV, Channel 79, so they can find it there. Thank you again for joining us, and we hope you'll consider getting involved. Have a wonderful evening.